Welcome to The Explainer. We're going to dive into a topic today that is just full of stereotypes, right? We're talking about big age gaps in relationships, and we're looking at it specifically from the perspective of young women in the Philippines. So, to get past all those cliches, we figured, why not go straight to the source? We actually talked to four young Filipinas, asked for their totally unfiltered, honest opinions. And let me tell you, what they said, it reveals a reality that is way more complex and way more personal than you'd probably think. All right, so let's meet the four women who were kind enough to share their thoughts with us. Let's hear what they had to say. Okay, first up, we have Nicole. She's 25, works as a nurse, and right off the bat, she comes in with this really open, really accepting point of view. For her, it seems like it's all about whether you click. Compatibility is the key, not how many years are between you. Next, we've got Rame. She's an 18-year-old student, and, well, her first reaction is pretty much the complete opposite. Her personal preference is super clear. For her, a big age gap is just not her thing. It's too much. And here's Janza, also 18, and she immediately brings up something that turns out to be a really big theme in this whole conversation. It's this idea that if the love is real, then age, it just doesn't matter. And finally, rounding out our group, we have Ma. She's a 24-year-old professional, and she kind of frames the whole issue in a really modern way. She's basically calling for us to be more open-minded as a society. Okay, so let's really get into it. When we ask these women not about themselves, but about other people's relationships, something really interesting happened. A super clear, super consistent theme of acceptance just popped right up. Yeah, the general feeling was basically live and let live. They all pretty much agreed that as long as we're talking about consenting adults, hey, it's their choice. They were also quick to point out that women in their early 20s are not kids. They have every right to decide for themselves. And get this quote? It's from Rame. The same person who just said she personally doesn't like big age gaps. So this really shows you something important. There's a huge difference between her personal taste and how she judges other people. She's basically saying, not for me, but you do you. But this is where things get really fascinating. When we shift the question, when it stops being about them and becomes about me, well, that consensus just evaporates. It's gone. And this is where you really see all the different layers. When it comes to their own personal choices, their answers are all over the map. It just reveals this incredible spectrum of what each of these women is actually looking for in a relationship. I mean, this slide just lays it out perfectly. Look at the contrast. On one end of the spectrum, you've got Nicole, who's 25, and she's totally cool with dating men well into their 60s. Then, on the complete other end, you have 18-year-old Zanza, who's looking for someone much, much closer to her own age, like just a 3 to 5 year gap. So if we look at all four of them on one chart, you can really see that range. May and Ray May fall somewhere in the middle there. May, who's 24, she'd think about a 10, maybe 20-year gap. And Ray May, who's 18, says the oldest she'd go is 30. So yeah, there's absolutely no single rule here at all. So you have to wonder, right? Where do these different preferences come from? A lot of the time, it's shaped by what you see around you. Take Janza, for example. Even though she wants a smaller gap for herself, she points to her own aunt, who's in a happy marriage with a man 12 years older. So what that shows is, even if it's not her personal preference, she's seen firsthand that a bigger gap can absolutely work. All right, so this is the big question. What's the why behind all this? Especially for the women who are open to dating men who are quite a bit older, what is it they're actually looking for? Well, when we looked at all the interviews, a few key things kept coming up over and over again. The number one reason? Maturity. And not just being older, but having that emotional stability, that life experience to really handle a relationship well. Another big one was personality being more important than looks. And interestingly, this idea that an older, more established partner lets them tap into their own feminine side. And Ma just says it so perfectly here. She's explaining that for her, it's not about the number. It's about the person's character. A great personality, that's the foundation. Physical appearance, that's just a nice little bonus. Okay, so let's bring it all together. We had to ask them the final, most important question. Is it a mistake for an older guy to date a much younger Filipina? And you know what they said? Overwhelmingly, the answer was, it depends. They were really clear that there's no easy yes or no here. Whether a relationship works or not, it all comes down to the two people in it, their maturity, their situation, their mindset. It's totally individual.
So I think the big takeaway from all this is that trying to paint everyone with the same brush is just a huge mistake. There is no single Filipina opinion on age gaps. The reality, as we've heard from these four very different women, is way more nuanced. It's shaped by what you believe, what you've experienced, and what you personally want out of life.
And really, that leaves us with one last thing to think about. The things these women said they valued the most were qualities like maturity, personality, and love. So, if those are the true foundations of a strong relationship, it really makes you ask, how much does a number on a birth certificate actually matter at the end of the day?